we'll get started. I'll get started, and then people can come in partway through my little opening spiel. They won't miss anything important. But we are recording this, so if there's anything people do miss, we can go back and watch it after. So good afternoon, everybody. So thank you for joining today's session. Sorry, we're a little bit late getting started. Really appreciate you coming out for this information session on the Rainbow Registered Program. Before we get started, we'd like to do a little bit of a land acknowledgement just to identify that the land we identify as RTO9 is the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee, Anishinaabe, and Huron-Wendat peoples. RTO9 and the Indigenous Tourism Ontario honor and respect the land, the people, and the treaties. We are extremely thankful for the original tour guides of these lands and all that they have shared. All those that reside, work, and play on these lands are treaty people, and we must honor the treaties in a mutually beneficial and equitable manner. With 1 in 5 Indigenous people in Canada living in Ontario, we believe working together in a mutually beneficial manner will help all Ontarians prosper through the joint development of the tourism industry. Ontario is home to one of the largest Indigenous tourism industries in Canada. RTO9 and ITO are pleased to be working side by side together under an MOU to help advance the Indigenous tourism industry in Ontario. As an ally to Indigenous people and a partner of Indigenous Tourism Ontario, RTO9 will commit to improving the socioeconomic conditions of Indigenous people through tourism by creating space for Indigenous people to tell their stories on their terms. So just a couple of housekeeping notes before we get started. So this session is being recorded, as I mentioned, so it'll be available for viewing after the session today on the RTO9 website, which is just rto9.ca. There will be a question period at the end if we have time. So please feel free to pop them in the Q&A box at the bottom, which can be done anonymously or in the chat window. We'll keep an eye on both. You'll also receive an email following today's session with just a quick 2-minute survey. So if you're able to spare some time to review it, that would be great. But without further ado, I'm going to pass it off to Connor and Spencer from CGLCC to talk about the Rainbow Registered Program.
Amazing, folks. Thanks so much for coming here to join us today. And thank you for that fabulous introduction, Meg. I really appreciated especially that land acknowledgement there. Very thoughtful. And I appreciated that you chatted a little bit about what it means for you and some thoughts on my end about what it means for us as a chamber, especially because we have the word Canada in our title. And historically, this land has been known as Turtle Island. So we're constantly thinking about intersectionality and what a decolonialized mindset throughout the work that we're doing and the knowledge that we're sharing as well. So on that note, thank you everyone for joining us here today in our Rainbow Registered Information and 2S LGBTQI+ Travel Market Workshop. My name's Connor. I use he, him, and they, them pronouns, and I have the privilege of working on the Rainbow Registered program with my fabulous colleague who is very well equipped to introduce himself, and I'll throw it over to him.
Thank you, Connor. Hello, everyone. My name is Spencer Toth. My pronouns are he, him, and I am the program manager for Rainbow Registered. And yeah, I'm very excited to be here with all of you and to chat with you a little bit more about the program alongside Connor, as well as share a little bit more information about the 2S LGBTQI+ travel market as part of this workshop. So it's not just info session, it's also a little bit of information you can take back with you to learn a little bit more about the travel habits and interests of the 2S LGBTQI+ travel market for your business.
Amazing. So just before we jump into the 2S LGBTQI+ travel market, we're going to give you folks a little bit of an idea of who we are as a Chamber of Commerce and why the work we do is important. It's really going to help the frame of understanding 2S LGBTQI+ tourism and the work we're doing inside that area. So at the Canadian 2S LGBTQI+ Chamber of Commerce, we're a coalition of queer business owners and entrepreneurs, allies, government liaisons, corporate members, community partners, and students of business that advocate and work towards a more inclusive Canadian economy, one connection at a time. That's our mission statement, and all of the work we do throughout all of our programs all translates back to working towards a more inclusive Canadian economy. So just a couple of facts right here, just to let you understand who we are, who we represent. We represent 28,000 2S LGBTQI+ owned businesses in Canada. There's 22 billion in gross corporate revenue, or 1% of Canada's total, that comes from this market. We also represent 435,000 queer employees, which is also equal to the population of Halifax, which is where I'm from. A couple stats about these communities: they're more likely to be self-employed, they're more likely to be young entrepreneurs, serve in domestic markets, and also employ and work with other diverse-owned businesses. We also often get the question, why do you have to exist as a chamber? What's the need? What are folks experiencing that makes it important for your chamber to exist? So we actually do a lot of work with our business owners and collect stats to create a picture statistically of what our business owners are dealing with. Actually, 1 in 2 2S LGBTQI+ business owners have purposely hidden the fact that their company has 2S LGBTQI+ ownership. 1 in 3 2S LGBTQI+ business owners believe that they've lost opportunities after self-identifying. And 3 in 10 2S LGBTQI+ business owners have faced discrimination because of queer ownership of the business. So definite clear barriers there that we've identified through the work we do with our businesses. And it really highlights why the work we do in Rainbow Registered is important. So what is Rainbow Registered? Rainbow Registered is our 2S LGBTQI+ safe space accreditation program here at the Canadian 2S LGBTQI+ Chamber of Commerce. It's not just an accrediting body, but it's a membership program that brings businesses together all under the umbrella of 2S LGBTQI+ inclusivity. So we accredit businesses under 4 pillars. They are your policies and your practices, your training, and your commitment to inclusive leadership and culture of inclusivity. All of the businesses who have been accredited with us, they haven't just slapped up a rainbow flag here behind them and gotten Rainbow Registered. They've been paired with our assessment team, had a conversation about what 2S LGBTQI+ inclusion looks like in their business, and either from that point have gotten accredited or done some work either with their assessor, with us, or on their own to get to where they need to be accredited. So lots of work that our businesses have done to get accredited, lots of great folks that we've highlighted through the program, and lots of great work that you folks can tap into as well if you're interested through what Spencer is about to share with you.
Thank you, Connor. And yeah, so really on the Rainbow Register side, just really want to emphasize as well, the fact that it's evidence-based is something that is really intentional, because at the end of the day, a lot of the times, there's concerns thrown around about businesses that try to pink wash or rainbow wash their business as a way of appearing inclusive to the 2S LGBTQI+ community, but without doing any effort to actually support the community itself. So we want to go beyond a standard safe space program where you might just toss a flag in the window or put a sticker on your door, and say, when you're Rainbow Registered, hey, we'll give you a sticker to put on your door that's Rainbow Registered, but it means something a lot more. It means that you're actually actively committing to us LGBTQI+ inclusion through, like Connor said, your training, your policies and practices, your culture, your community leadership efforts, and a variety of other things. So it is a really exciting program. And just to provide a bit of a frame for the program, we do want to kind of lead off with a bit more about the 2S LGBTQI+ travel market. And then after we go through some of this, just to share some more information and research that we've conducted about the market, then we'll pass it back to Connor to bring us home with a little bit more about Rainbow Registered and how you can get involved if you are interested in this accreditation program. So when we talk about the 2S LGBTQI+ travel market, it's important to remember that, just like how there's many acronyms as part of the makeup of the queer community, there's not just one market there. It's a very diverse group of individuals with a lot of different interests. So, I mean, when you try to segment this market, of course, you can split it out to your lesbians, your gay people, bisexual, transgender, two-spirit, queer folks. But these people can be traveling as a family unit. They can be traveling as couples. They can be traveling solo. They might be seniors or they might be youth. They might travel based on their interests in the outdoors or food or arts and culture. There's many different ways that we can look at this market, but there are some commonalities in terms of the expectations this community has in terms of how we're focusing on destination development and how we're ensuring we're providing a safe space in the businesses that are looking to attract queer folks as they travel throughout Canada. So to talk a little bit about the demographics of the community, there are estimated to be around 30 million 2S LGBTQI plus folks living in North America currently, and there is a increase in the number of people that are members of the 2S LGBTQI plus community that have children at home, with 30% estimated to be households that have one or more children. So that long-term kind of long-held belief of the queer couple as dual income, no kids is not necessarily the case. There is active and growing community that do travel as a family unit and are members of the 2S LGBTQI plus community. It's a fairly highly educated market. 45% have a bachelor's degree or higher, and it is a market that tends to have a decent amount of disposable income. 28% are that were surveyed as part of this had a household income, of more than $100,000, and 35% had a household income between $50,000 and $100,000. And so there is some additional research we'll be sharing that I believe on the next slide, maybe a little bit further down the line, that talks about that. Not the next slide, but the travel market itself, just to kind of give you a sense of like how big of a scope it is. The Canadian 2S LGBTQI plus travel market is estimated at $12 billion in value annually, and that's been increasing quite rapidly over the past decade. So it is a very lucrative market, but it is something that there's more to just welcoming this market as more than just the dollar value they represent. In terms of North America, the travel market is estimated at 70 billion among the 2S LGBTQI plus community, and then globally, this market is estimated in value at $200 billion. So again, it is a important market. It's a high spending market. It's a high traveling market. But there's more to do than just like look at them again as a dollar sign. As a member of the community, Connor and I ourselves can attest that we can see through inauthentic attempts to be inclusive and try to attract queer folks to their establishment. So this presentation will also go a little bit more in depth with that as well. In terms of travel habits, like I said, it's a high spending market. So on average, Canadian 2S LGBTQI plus travelers spend up to 7 times more than the general traveling public. So that's estimated at $1,855 per trip, compared to roughly $265 per trip for the average member of the generaling public. So there is an interest in traveling further distances, traveling luxury travel even as part of that. But it's also a market that is, looking for value and cost-effective travel too. So it's again, a heterogeneous, we'll say, market, in that there's a lot of different travel interests among the market, but in general, high spending when it comes to travel. When it comes to the high income households, on average, they spend more than $2,000 per leisure trip, and 50% of them travel 3 to 4 times per year. When it comes to kind of differences in the market, there are just some brief highlights to share. Roughly 45% of lesbian travelers take shorter trips per year, so 3 to 4 trips per year on average. And then when it comes to gay travelers, they tend to be more likely to take fewer trips per year, but of a slightly longer length. So it does, like I said, the market does kind of, have a very variety, I guess you could say, to it. So, just to give some Canadian regional highlights, the 2S LGBTQI plus travelers that reside in BC, through our research, have been found to spend the most per trip, averaging $1,980 per trip. And then 90% of 2S LGBTQI plus travelers intended to travel in Canada in 2020. This research was conducted just at the start of the pandemic, but as we will reveal in one of the future slides, this actually, because, COVID had a very large impact on the travel market here in Canada. And this is actually something where this research is still highly relevant because, as we'll talk about later on, the 2S LGBTQI plus community is a very resilient travel market in the face of major industry shocks. So whether 90% were able to travel in Canada, up for debate given the lockdowns and that happened, but there was a healthy appetite to travel. And what we saw as well is that when we're looking at this market, it does tend to skew towards more larger and mid-sized cities in terms of their favorite destinations. But there is an appetite for rural travel, with 55% of gay travelers, for example, visiting a rural area at least once in 2019. And as someone myself who did all my master's thesis research about rural travel of gay folks, I can attest that there is a healthy appetite based on my research for travel to regions outside of just urban centers. As probably is not surprising, the top destination provinces were Ontario, Quebec, BC, and Alberta, our most populated provinces. And when it came to travel, there was also 58% of people aged 26 to 35 that travel to tier 2 cities, so more mid-sized cities compared to like your metropolitan would be your Torontos, Montreals, Vancouvers, Calgarys, etc. And then the tier 2 more mid-sized ones that were still a popular destination. And again, rural travel as well was very popular with this market. But when it comes to motivators, one thing that we really want to emphasize, and this is the one thing that is really important to consider, and it ties in very well with Rainbow Registered, is the number one motivation for choosing a destination to travel to for 2S LGBTQI folks is safety. So knowing that they can be their authentic selves in the destination was a motivator for 89% of the people surveyed. So it was the top consideration, not by a ton. Again, the number two was just 1% behind, which was value for money and cost. But with that said, it is something that's unique to the 2S LGBTQI plus community, because that safety consideration is something that's not seen when we look at destination motivators for the general traveling public as a whole. So we need to think as, business owners and tourism professionals, that safety and inclusivity is something that this market takes seriously. So how can we make sure that our businesses and our destinations are providing the kind of safety that these people are looking for when they're traveling? And I can attest to this as well. Whenever I travel, I definitely want to make sure that I'm traveling somewhere where I don't have to go back in the closet or anything like that. I want to make sure that I'm able to travel authentically as myself and with my partner, with no concerns for the fact that we are queer folks traveling through the world, which in some places there may be perceptions of safety that might be lower, and that's something that definitely on the destination development side needs to be addressed. So in terms of motivators, like I said, safety is number one. Cost value for money is also very important. Following up from that, a lot of the other ones, there are considerations that are similar to the general traveling public. So things like climate and weather. The political climate is important to us LGBTQI plus folks. Again, tying back into safety a bit. Bucket list destinations and kind of like pinnacle dream travel opportunities is something that's an important motivator. A destination's reputation for diversity and welcoming the 2S LGBTQI plus community is important. And one thing we always emphasize when we talk about how to develop destinations that are 2S LGBTQIA plus inclusive, one thing that is always an important factor in demonstrating that you're a safe and welcoming community is having a visible and engaged local 2S LGBTQIA plus community. So, that's something to consider, is how does your destination, how visible is your 2S LGBTQI plus community? How visible is diversity in your community? How welcoming are you to the community? These are all things that matter. Friends and family travel is pretty common, anything recommended by them, but also there is some consideration and interest in traveling to places that have a rich 2S LGBTQI plus culture and history as well. So this is just a snapshot to give you some idea of the motivators, but I hope it does kind of sell home the point that safety and how we develop inclusive businesses and destinations is really important. Canada in general, though, is a wonderful place to grow this market because in a global context, we are seen as having one of the best qualities of life, and we're one of the most idealized, I guess, places to live in the world. There is also considerations about the fact that we have this reputation of being kind, progressive, inclusive, safe, and that's something that is something that really benefits us as tourism businesses. One of We were one of the first countries to legalize same-sex marriage back in 2005, so it is something that has helped develop this reputation that Canada is very inclusive of 2S LGBTQI plus folks. We do have vibrant and active queer communities, and as I said, that's very important when it comes to attracting other 2S LGBTQI plus people to your local destination. We have wide variety, as you know, of different places to visit and different offerings, be it anything from arts and culture over to food, over to natural attractions and outdoor activities and everything in between. We also have a lot of different 2S LGBTQI plus festivals, be it pride festivals, we have ski weeks, we have movie festivals. There's a wide variety of specific 2S LGBTQI plus events and programming that attract people to Canada. And when it comes to the market, we want to highlight that in comparison to their heterosexual counterparts, 2S LGBTQI plus folks are more likely to have a passport. They're more likely to have disposable income. And as I mentioned and referred to earlier, they have demonstrated more resilience and a faster recovery time to travel after industry shocks. So we saw that in the fallout from 9/11 and SARS, and preliminary research that I've seen that has looked a little bit about rebounding travel after COVID-19 has shown that it is also demonstrating resilience as a travel market in the face of COVID as well. So it is something, as we're looking at tourism recovery, this is an important market to consider. And again, authenticity is key. So we want to see businesses that meaningfully engage with the community, that actually are providing a safe space through their policies, through their actual tangible efforts. And we're looking to basically trust a business. And once that trust is earned, the 2S LGBTQI plus market is very loyal. We like to go back to destinations we like. We like to go back to businesses we like. It really is a market that will champion your business if you do right by them and authentically try to attract 2S LGBTQI plus folks to your business. And there's other considerations with Rainbow Register as well. And part of that is even how you support and welcome your 2S LGBTQI plus employees and stakeholders. So that plays a role in Rainbow Registered, and Connor will talk about that a bit when we get back to that, which should be soon. I think we only have 2 more slides here about the travel market. So just to start wrapping this up, I just want to highlight that research has shown that the 2S LGBTQI plus travel markets interests when they're traveling are very in line with those of the general travel market as well. So food and dining is the top activity, visiting popular tourist attractions, outdoor activities, arts and culture, visiting family and friends, all the way over to shopping and festivals and events and wellness. So these are ones that are popular with pretty much all travelers, and it's pretty in line between general traveling public, like I said, and 2S LGBTQI plus folks. But there are a contingent of 2S LGBTQI plus folks that travel specifically to attend 2S LGBTQI plus events, pride festivals. Like I said, there's ski weeks across the country. There's movie festivals. There's a variety of music gatherings as well. So there are the consideration that, you know, hosting events as a business is something that can attract people to your business, be it locals or travelers. And attending parties and events is something that there is a definitely a market for among 2S LGBTQI plus travelers. So just to wrap this up, I just want to leave you with a few ideas. So these are just some ways that you might want to bring back to your own business, bring back to if you do any work with other businesses in your area, if you're connected to any event producers, if you work closely with RTO9 or your other local destination marketing organization, then these are just some things to consider. I know RTO9 has been doing fantastic work on this front. And we've been doing a lot of work. They've been doing a lot of work as well on doing a 2S LGBTQI plus destination audit, which is awesome. So just some of the products that we can highlight as some examples to get your brain going about this and thinking of ideas. So there's the festivals and events, like I said, pride festivals, there's ski and snowboard weeks, there's culinary festivals, film festivals, etc. that are tailored and marketed to the community. There are 2S LGBTQI plus focused experiences. So I've encountered walking tours that are specific to the 2S LGBTQI plus history of a destination. There's, you know, various other kind of opportunities with local storytellers that tell you a bit more about the history of the queer community in that area. There's group tours. So I've worked with a bit in the past with a tour provider called Out Adventures as an example. And they do travel all over the world, or there's ones that will do group tours in a local destination. So, you know, walking tours, cycling tours, boat tours, wine tours. I know we have a wine tour for the 2S LGBTQI plus community here in BC in Kelowna, for example. So those are some cool ideas as well. Outdoor activities is something that's very popular among the 2S LGBTQI plus community. So if you look at things like group kayaking, stand-up paddle boarding, zip lining, glamping, etc., or even you can consider ways to integrate 2S LGBTQI plus programming into existing festivals, events, experiences. And the example I provided there is just one that Connor and I both experienced ourselves. So we were in January in New York City to attend the Travel and Adventure Show and advertise Southern Ontario's Rainbow Registered businesses to the New York travel market. So we do as part of Rainbow Registered quite a bit of consumer awareness work to bring awareness to the businesses that are Rainbow Registered. And one thing that they did was within this larger travel and adventure show that was targeted at destinations around the world and all different types of experiences, is that they had an LGBTQ pavilion area, which specifically had tour companies and Rainbow Registered and other organizations that were looking to support 2S LGBTQI plus travelers. And I thought that was a really fun way to integrate something that speaks to inclusion without making that the sole focus of the event. So it can just be a portion of existing programming and finding how we can tailor our experiences, festivals, events, etc., to this community. So I hope that gave you a little bit more of an idea of the travel market. And if you have any questions, I think our contact info will be on the last slide, or I'll pop it in the chat or something. But always happy to chat if you ever want to talk a little bit more about the kind of more the travel market and the tourism angle there. But I'll pass it back to Connor to hop back into talking about Rainbow Registered.
Amazing. Thank you, Spencer. And we'll definitely have time for questions after this. And I brought a couple FAQs, maybe to spark some discussion if we want to. And maybe there'll be a bunch of questions about this. And it's a very interesting topic. And I really love these fabulous stats and best practices that we've pulled right out of our work from the community. And I always enjoy hearing this presentation. So thank you, Spencer. And happy to go into a bit more about Rainbow Registered now. Now that we've talked about the 2S LGBTQI plus travel market, some different inclusive practices and what the community looks for, I'd love to go into our best practices. I want to share some examples of what we consider best practices at Rainbow Registered to start sparking some ideas of some practices you folks might want to start bringing into your business. So I'm going to take it pillar by pillar, but before I do that, I want to start with a little bit more info and history on Rainbow Registered. So as the Canadian 2S LGBTQI plus Chamber of Commerce, we've existed for 20 years. This is actually our 20th birthday this year. And 2S LGBTQI travel always been a bit offering or adjacent to our offerings. One of our founding board members was actually very involved in 2S LGBTQI plus inclusive tourism. He was a queer man, and he did a lot of work advocating within tourism spaces, and he has actually passed away now. And I like to imagine Rainbow Registered as kind of the final evolution of the work that he was doing with us for 2S LGBTQI plus inclusive tourism. So it's been really, really exciting to watch how Rainbow Registered has grown since it launched in 2021 in partnership with Tourism HR Canada and the federal government. Because of our fabulous launch partners, Rainbow Registered has always had a huge presence within the tourism industry, and especially because of our fabulous partners, like those in RTO9, like Meg, like the folks who we work with in Southern Ontario and across the country who have been championing Rainbow Registered and the values that we share through 2S LGBTQI plus inclusive tourism and the 4 pillars of the accreditation. So on that note, I'd love to share some of the fabulous best practices that we've pulled straight from the work that we do with the community as to what folks look for and what you folks can bring into your workplaces to start building inclusive spaces. So the first pillar that we look at is policies and practices. We look to make sure that an organization has non-discriminatory practices that are respectful of sexual orientation and gender identity. Now, there's a lot of ways that this can show up, and of course, every business is different. We've accredited businesses that have thousands of employees all the way down to businesses that have 1 to 2 or even 0 employees for those sole proprietorships. And of course, the larger businesses are going to have really strong written policies, SOPs, employee handbooks, and all kinds of written stuff. And, who knows, maybe the medium and small businesses have those too. But for a lot of the medium and small businesses, they end up submitting practices as well for evidence. So maybe it's a practice that you have a gender neutral washroom available to all customers and staff. Maybe you have a written non-discriminatory policy that ensures the equal treatment of all staff and volunteers. Maybe it's your practice to use gender neutral language and e-signatures that have pronouns in them. Those are all different examples of either written policy or specific standard practices in your workplace. And of course, there's a whole bunch, and I'll go over just a few out of each of them, but I like to list them because maybe there's one that I didn't mention that you can see and recognize, oh, this is work that we're already doing here. And then maybe you can do some value setting and decide, down the line, this is what we want to work towards that we don't have yet. So I actually, for each pillar, have included some real evidence that businesses have submitted to us through the accreditation piece. A lot of the time I get questions like, what does evidence look like? So evidence is maybe a photo of the forms that you use that are 2S LGBTQI plus inclusive in how you ask people to identify. Maybe a photo of the pin where it's your practice that everyone wears pronoun pins in the workplace, or everyone who wants to and is comfortable with doing that. Maybe it's a written policy that everyone has access to gender neutral washrooms. So you could have a photo of that policy or a photo of the gender neutral washroom that we have there. So all 3 of these are actual real pieces of evidence that were submitted to us through accreditation. So it can help you folks visualize what could this practice look like in my workplace and what maybe you would need to do in order to get accredited through Rainbow Registered. So training, we look to make sure a business or organization provides diversity and inclusion training, for staff and volunteers that contributes to public education on diversity and inclusion. So it's building allyship. We look for training that talks about the 2S LGBTQI+ community, who they are, what are pronouns and how to use them, what does a respectful workplace look like. Now, there's lots of different ways that folks have approached training throughout the accreditation. Maybe they've taken a specific DEI training course, maybe through us or through one of our partners like the Canadian Centre for Diversity and Inclusion. Maybe they've taken one of our 2S LGBTQI+ travel offerings here at the Chamber, whether it's the course that we have online that's self-paced or our 2S LGBTQI+ travel market workshop that you did here today with Spencer and I. There's, of course, lots of other different fabulous folks who provide training and great resources out there. Training really is an important piece of this accreditation, and with it being one of the areas that we see a lot of opportunity for growth in for the businesses coming through on the accreditation, we do work to actually provide training for the businesses who register as well. So every month we do a micro lunch and learn session in our What's the Buzz, which is our monthly meetup for our Rainbow Registered businesses. It starts off with about 15 minutes of what's going on in Rainbow Registered that month and how to activate and get the most out of your membership. So for example, right now we're doing a holiday gift guide for Rainbow Registered businesses where businesses can sign up and advertise their holiday offerings or maybe potential good gifts for folks to buy for people over the holidays. And of course, lots of other different campaigns like the NYC Travel and Adventure Trade Show, like Spencer mentioned, that we do to really help folks get the most out of their membership after that accreditation piece. One of those being the micro lunch and learn sessions in our What's the Buzz. After that 15-minute intro, we go into a 30-minute honed in, very focused lunch and learn that tackles one of the 4 pillars and a best practice under them. So the one we had last month was on bias in the workplace. We have one coming up on well, Spencer, correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't it celebrating Pride year round?
Yeah, so the one that's taking place on Tuesday next week for What's the Buzz is a bit about how you can celebrate Pride year round as well as engage with your local 2S LGBTQI+ community and particularly with Pride societies. So one of our certified suppliers through the CGLCC, Jack from Ivy and Dean Consulting will be presenting that on Tuesday. So just as there's a wide range of examples though, and as any business that gets accredited gets access to all of our past What's the Buzz recordings as well. So if you ever want to check out some of our past trainings that have been going on since June 2022, there is a playlist that is available to all accredited businesses to watch through those.
Thanks, Spencer. That's phenomenal. I really appreciate all the work you do planning those phenomenal sessions every month. And I love that they're recorded as well, because it can be hard sometimes to get all your staff in the room for a training session. You know, it's expensive to get all that staff time together, and then, you know, not to mention the cost of booking a trainer. So I love that they're recorded. You can send them out to your staff. They're available to everyone in your organization from the moment that you register for the program. So if anyone's interested in that session that Spencer mentioned next week, I can chat with you and get you registered so you can get access to that. And definitely any of the past trainings that we've done, super happy to share that with anyone who registers. So here's some examples of some past evidence that folks have submitted for training. So this big photo right here of resources, this was actually a photo on pronouns and how to use them in the workplace, how to use them respectfully, and maybe what to do if you do something wrong as well, how do you approach that? So this was the handout, and they asked all their staff to start their shift that day, taking 5 minutes just to read this piece of education to boost their knowledge on pronouns and how to use them respectfully in the workplace. I know a lot of the time when we think about training, there's a lot of different ideas of what that looks like. Having a piece of that, like an evidence that is a resource that you shared with your employees, can definitely be a piece of the training accreditation side. We have some photos of some different online courses that a business took on bias and understanding bias. And then we also have some photos of some different courses that a business brought their employees through. So some different examples of evidence that folks can submit to satisfy the training requirement. All right, so our third pillar is your commitment to inclusive leadership. So we look to make sure an organization demonstrates leadership and commitment to the 2S LGBTQI+ community and inclusion beyond the scope of their operation. So this pillar is my favorite pillar because it not only does it look at the workplace, but it looks at going above and beyond. What do you put out to the community? How do you show folks that you are 2S LGBTQI+ inclusive? So there's a lot of different ways that folks can do that, whether it's through community support or working with local organizations, donating to charitable events, sponsoring something, doing a donation, getting involved in a pride festival. If you have a renewable declaration or a commitment to 2S LGBTQI+ inclusive programming, like on your website, somewhere where consumers can see that. Maybe you have advertising that you put out, and maybe it's not exactly being about queer at all, but you're using inclusive imagery there. That could all definitely count. So some examples of that right here, just like the example I mentioned, this is a wedding and event venue that they were advertising folks just to their venue for wedding and events. And the photo that they were using is actually of a queer couple who is getting married there. So I love that one because it's not about being queer at all, but in the photo that they use, they're showing folks, this is a venue for everyone. We've got some photos of some inclusive messaging that folks put out on their socials. A schedule of the events a business was going to during the local Pride Festival. Different community engagement within a queer event that one of our businesses submitted as part of their evidence. And then some swag stickers and postcards that folks had created to show their pride year round in their marketing and their deliverables. So these are all just a couple different examples. And of course, it's unique to every workplace and how it shows up. So maybe right now you're thinking about what it could look like in your workplace and your own unique experience. And our final pillar is the culture of inclusivity. So we look to make sure a business or organization has established an organizational culture that's 2S LGBTQI+ inclusive and affirmative. So this piece is really internal. It looks at your workplace and your culture. So maybe you have a 2S LGBTQI+ code of ethics, a mission statement, a value statement somewhere that talks about maybe 2S LGBTQI+ inclusion or setting values like respect, transparency, and a list of things that work in your workplace that relate back to inclusion, so a code of ethics to follow. Maybe you have a safe space commitment that you follow in your workplace. When it comes down to actual physical space, maybe you've got a pride flag somewhere that your employees can see. Maybe you have pronoun pins that your employees can wear if they want to. Maybe in a break room, you have a sign up on the wall that says this is a workplace that is free from gender and sexuality-based discrimination. All different examples of different ways you can bring that culture of inclusion into your workplace. So here's some real examples from our accreditations. Welcoming physical space is a photo of a pride flag that someone had up in their offices, letting their employees know that it was 2S LGBTQI+ inclusive. And this, it's important, it wasn't consumer facing. This isn't an office that, is just doing business together. So it's interesting from the perspective, it's creating that safe space and the culture for their employees. And then on the other side of that, this is what folks were putting out to the community, having inclusive products. And if I'm not mistaken as well, I think they donated some of the proceeds from this product back to the community as well. And then also, here's an example of a value statement. So some core values that a business had that relates back to 2S LGBTQI+ inclusion and guides their internal practices as well. So lots of ways, again, that internal culture of inclusion can show up. It's all about how it's unique to your space. So we've chatted a lot about Rainbow Registered. There's a couple more pieces of the program that I want to mention before we open up the floor to questions. So we've chatted a lot about that accreditation piece, meeting with your assessor, doing that spot check as to where your levels of 2S LGBTQI+ inclusion are in the business. If you go straight through, that's awesome, and you get to go up on our consumer-facing website, which I'll chat a little bit about in a sec. If your assessor decides that you're not quite at the point where you're ready to get accredited yet, we don't say, okay, see you later, you're not inclusive. What's great about the program and the fact that it's administered by the Canadian 2S LGBTQI+ Chamber of Commerce is we have the Chamber's resources available to us. So we're actually able to do either some resource sharing with our businesses who need to do a little bit more work, who are not met. They get the business development report from their assessor that highlights, okay, these are the pieces that you had. So maybe one pillar is already done, and then you have one piece of evidence you need from the third pillar, and then you need 3 pieces of evidence still from each pillar. And it gives you an idea as to what you need to work towards in your workplace, what your strong spots are, and what the weak points are as well. So it's a great way to do, I don't like to call it like an audit, but it's a conversation as to where your levels of inclusion are at in your business. And you actually have 12 months to work on the suggestions your assessor gave you if you do end up not meeting the requirements right away, which is totally fine because a lot of businesses don't meet the requirements right away and end up doing work with us, engaging in our What's the Buzz trainings that we have, attending our 2S LGBTQI+ tourism and marketplace workshops, inclusive workplace workshops, and of course, all of the benefits that folks get through their membership portal as well. So speaking of that, we have our consumer-facing website. This is a big pillar of the Rainbow Registered program because while the accreditation side is more of our business-to-business element, the consumer-facing website is that consumer element for the program. So we have our website, which is our travel map. So when folks are planning their trip, they can take a look across the country and actually see the specific Rainbow Registered businesses in each region that are accredited. So when they're planning a trip and looking for those businesses that are able to provide the safe experience that they're looking for, the inclusive travel experiences that they're looking for, they can zoom in, decide for the attractions based on who's Rainbow registered in their region. So it's a really fabulous directory for 2S LGBTQI+ friendly businesses and a great way to show folks across the country the work that you've done and your commitment to your values. So definitely happy to chat with anyone who's interested in getting Rainbow registered. It's my bad, Spencer. I didn't put your email on here, but maybe we'll drop our
Oh,
emails.
fine. I'll toss it into the chat here because I also have some resources I want to share with one of the questions in the Q&A. So if you need to reach me as well, my email is just spencer@cglcc.ca. Connor's is connor@cglcc.ca. So I put that in the chat. Meg, do you want me to hop right into the Q&A portion there, or?
Sure, that would be great. I see that there's a couple of questions lined up, so go ahead. Yeah, we'll start answering them.
Perfect, thank you. So I see Elizabeth asked, how would you visually identify a gender neutral washroom? So this is something that's very important. One thing we took the one there out that there was some examples I've seen in the past that will show like the male washroom symbol and the female one and then like a half hybrid of them. Do not do that. Please do not do that. Because it does kind of, potentially imply a third gender or, a half and half hybrid, and that's really disrespectful of the trans community and non-binary community. So I have that's one example that we showed. It could just be a written thing. And I also want to post some other resources in the chat there, Elizabeth, that you're welcome to take a look at. One is a little bit about the signage that Toronto Metropolitan University created to support their gender neutral washrooms, and they're very explicit. And if they aren't a gender neutral washroom, it will identify, no, this is a men's washroom, but if you identify as a male or identify as a non-binary person, you are welcome to use this washroom, and making it very clear that people should be comfortable to use the washroom that aligns with their gender identity. There's also this good document here that talks a little bit more into some of the thoughts that I shared about the visual signage, and usually there's requirements. I believe that resource is American facing, so still have to adhere to any kind of signage requirements as required for your business, but I hope those resources can be helpful to review some bit about the visual signage. Angela asked, as a home-based food business with no staff and no brick and mortar store, is it possible for me to still pursue this certification? Short answer, yes. I'm thinking that I can bring culture inclusivity through my website videos and social media posts. Through my business, I also teach and do presentations and work with other businesses for collaborations. I'm assuming that I can bring inclusivity through those avenues as well, and absolutely you can. So we have worked with a number of food providers in the past, and we have worked with a number of home-based businesses. So that is not a concern at all. If you are interested in Rainbow Registered, taking advantage of our resources, helping market your business as 2S LGBTQI plus friendly. We're happy to work with you, and really our program is industry agnostic, so there is no industry that's off limits. There's no concerns about size of business. As Connor mentioned earlier, we've had everyone from like a sole proprietor that works by themselves out of their home, all the way up to organizations like Pfizer Canada, BDC, and such. So it really is an inclusive program, no matter what type of area focus you have. But yeah, if you have any questions, those are all great ways that you can demonstrate that kind of culture of inclusivity, and that even if you don't have staff, and you're welcome to reach out to our team.
Yeah, and I'm even thinking of like in your workshops, like with businesses, maybe you introduce yourself with your pronouns or ask people to put their pronouns after their name if they're comfortable doing so. And that's even just an idea right off the top of my head as to how you could do that. And maybe you already do.
Elizabeth also asked about, does the 2S LGBTQI plus Chamber of Commerce do work, partnerships, or collaboration with local chambers of commerce? And I'm happy to answer that one. We're actually have been working on a local partner organization program. It has not fully rolled out yet, but that is something that, we did, there's many of chambers of commerce that have gotten Rainbow Registered, for example, or that are national associate members of the CGLCC. So we have done work with a variety of local chambers, and we have been developing this local partner organization program to support membership-based organizations like chambers of commerce and pride societies across the country that want to work more closely with the CGLCC. So if there is any questions that you have about, local chambers, feel free to reach out to me, and I can keep you posted on when that program fully launches. And then would you have a list of what chambers are Rainbow Registered? So all of our Rainbow Registered businesses are on the websites at rainbowregistered.ca and Arc-en-Ciel Officiel.ca. So that would be a good resource. I know we've worked in the past with, blanking right now if they're still accredited, but I know the Hamilton Chamber we've done work with, the PEC
Yeah.
Chamber of Commerce we've done work with. I know we've done work with oh
Saugeen
gosh, there's so
Shores,
many.
Burlington
Saugeen
Chamber,
Shores,
Henry
and I
Chamber,
know Halifax
Halifax
Chamber
Chamber.
we've done
All
work
right.
with. So there are quite a bit of chambers that we have worked with. But the most comprehensive and up-to-date list of all the currently active and accredited businesses in the program are on the consumer website. So Connor just posted in the chat there. So rainbowregistered.ca. Or if you ever want to visit the French facing website, it's Arc-en-Ciel Officiel.ca, which I will just put there. Awesome. Do we have any other questions hovering out there?
This is
I
your
hope those.
opportunity.
And if you have any follow-ups based on any of our answers so far, always happy to answer those as well. I love it's just like Rainbow Registered and Doja Cat.
Oh gosh, I know. Sorry, that was my background working music. Don't expose my tabs.
Sorry,
Yeah.
I'm just teasing you, Connor.
Yeah, just a little, I'm just pulling up the map so folks can see businesses in the area. It's so always so nice for me to watch this fill up as uh, the work we do and the partnerships we develop get stronger and stronger. So I
And
would be so happy to see some folks who attended here up on this map someday, and maybe even soon if you shoot me an email.
Yeah, and I think that like we have opportunities. I mean, in terms of regions in Canada, I'm pretty sure RTO9 is the top, if I'm not, in terms of concentration of businesses, but a lot of that is centered in Kingston and PEC. So, if you're in any other areas of the RTO9 region, we'd love to see you apply too, or if you're from those areas, we'd love to see those continue to be leading destinations for the program. Um, there's a question in the chat. So to pursue accreditation, what is the next step? Who should we contact first? So uh, the best person to contact start that would be Connor. So I don't know if you want to mention a little bit about next steps, Connor.
Yeah, absolutely. So the next step, aside from emailing me, where I can give you all this fabulous information, and I'll drop my email in the chat right here, connor@cglcc.ca. But even you can get registered even without emailing me up on our website, cglcc.ca, which, I mean, without risking exposing more of my tabs, I'll send a link to that as well. So going online, clicking on our programs tab and going to Rainbow Register. Can everyone see this? Or is it still on the map?
Still on the map.
Here, I'll change it over so everyone can see. This is a good little demonstration here for everyone. So let's, I'll start from the very beginning here on the website. It's a very good place to start. Up on our cglcc.ca, clicking on the programs dropdown, clicking on Rainbow Registered. It's got some great info about the program, a lot of what we just shared with you folks here today, so you can skip by it. If you're ready and you're like convinced, you're like, let's get registered, good to go, you can click start the process and begin signing up by clicking on your business size. And you can create your little profile and then complete your registration. You can also, before you do that, you can check out the application form here. You can give that a little download.
One thing I want to highlight is that the application guide that's on there is very helpful as well. So that was one thing that I really encourage because it does highlight some of the stuff that we covered in this presentation as well. So it does give you some examples in the appendices of the program application guide about ways to provide evidence and some examples of what we assess under each of those four program pillars. So definitely that's a good resource to look at when you're looking to apply for the program. But yeah, you're welcome to reach out to Connor, or even I'm happy to chat as well about the program and yeah, answer any questions you might still have.
Amazing, folks. Thanks so much for having
Awesome.
us, Meg.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for presenting. It's one of those things that we do have lots of businesses in RTO9 that are already Rainbow registered. So we would love to fill up the roster with even more love across the entire region. So if you guys do have any questions, please feel free to reach out to Connor and Spencer. You're also free to reach out to me. I can get you in touch with them if you forget their emails. I'm happy to get you connected. And thank you so much to you both for coming presenting for us today, because I'm so excited about this program and I hope that a lot of our businesses are excited about it too.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us, Meg. Really appreciate all the work we've done with RTO9 and really excited for all of you that were in attendance today. If there's any resources we can provide or help, definitely let Connor and I know. And really appreciate all of the questions and engagement. It's been lovely.
Perfect. So
Thanks
we'll
so
let
much,
everyone
everyone.
go on to their next thing. Thank you so much for joining us today. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to the CGLCC to get Rainbow registered.
Thanks, everyone. And thank you, Meg.
No problem.
Thanks.
Thank you. Bye.
Have a
Bye.
good day.